Good morning. This is Ron. As I said to you yesterday, we were going to look at Luke 17, starting at verse 11. And let me tell you how this came to me. Couple of weeks ago, or last week, I can't remember which day it was. We were in Barbara's discussion of Genesis. We were looking at something, and Pastor said something about wholeness. And it got me to thinking, looking at the difference between wholeness and healing. And so that's how I got here. And most of the time, and I think I'm speaking for the teachers and pastor when I say this, a lot of times in the mornings, we don't exactly know where we're going all the time unless it's a continuation lesson. So it's hard to say, hey, guys, look at this verse or this chapter in this book. So we on that rare occasion, we were able to do that yesterday and let everybody know who was on the line that we're going to Luke 17. Okay, but however, let's back up a bit because yesterday we started with talking about the current events and things going on, talking about the verdict and that trial. And so I just want to make sure we open the door for questions on if there anything that anybody wants clarity on, since Pastor's on the line this morning, or somebody wants to voice an opinion on something, whatever. Want to make sure we address that before we go any further and attempt to do a recap anyway. So any questions or anything that happened this week, anything that come to your attention, something that you care to talk about?
Ron,
okay.
Good morning,
yes,
Ron.
ma'am.
This is Jackie.
Hey,
Me and Kathy, good morning. Kathy and I were talking this week, and it just kind of raised the brow because of both trials going on at the same time. And you guys may have discussed it yesterday. I wasn't on yesterday, but just wasn't the Arbery trial and then the Rittenhouse trial. Just wondered, what's the significance of that? Or is
Pastor,
actually, it's three. It's the Rittenhouse trial. One in Charlottesville, one in Brunswick, and the one in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And all three of them speak to racism, every one of them. And all three of them speaks to different forms of white superiority in being expressed. In the Arbery case, it was all black men are suspicious, and a black man has no rights that a white man is obligated to respect. And in that particular case, it was he was in our neighborhood running, and you know how they are type thing, and they killed him. The other one is in Kenosha. It speaks to the future, or what they purport to be the future, or the livelihood, the life rather, of white supremacy. And it was a statement that was made quite loud, and it was, if you are with them, it does not matter what color your skin is, you're treated as they are. So he killed 2 white men and wounded 1. In the case of Charlottesville, it speaks to, let me back up, and also in Kenosha, it spoke to how the judicial system works when it comes to Africans and Caucasians. And I know you've heard this 1,000 times, had that been an African male, 17 years old, he would have died right there at the scene before he shot anybody. All he had to do was show up with a weapon, and that would have been it. So it speaks to that as well. In Charlottesville, it speaks to the arrogance of white supremacy. and the seemingly pervasive nature of white supremacy. We do what we want to do when we want to do it, to the extent that it came to light that those guys had online discussed the possibilities of driving a vehicle through a crowd. And in doing so, they did something that does not usually happen. They killed a white woman. And white men don't kill their white women, but they will kill ours in a heartbeat. In this particular case, they killed a white woman. And they were white men. So the question becomes now, how is the judicial system going to handle it? Because this is not a criminal trial in Charlottesville. This is a civil trial in Charlottesville. So if we take all the three cases and look at them, it actually covers the whole spectrum of how white supremacy exerts itself in the society. I hope that helps you, Jackie.
It does. Thank you. I know Kathy and I think we kind of touched on that, and I said maybe it is racism, but I wasn't aware of the Charlottesville trial. Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? I'm sorry. Any other questions or comments? Okay. I think when we get into this lesson, you'll see how it directly ties in to the current events and where we are, and even what we're feeling this morning as we unfold this and gain some understanding. On yesterday, though, let me try to do a recap anyway, and you guys help me out because I'm usually lousy at recaps. But Pastor was talking about following up on his discussion with Moses and Aaron and their relationship, and starting with the burning bush experience and God speaking with Moses at the burning bush, and Moses being reluctant to go back to Egypt to lead the people. So, and all the excuses that he made, and how God, revealed or talked to him about what he was going through, or how he would assist him rather. And he even said that Aaron will come out and meet you, and Aaron will be your mouthpiece. So he talked about the relationship between Aaron and Moses, and Moses, God's telling Moses, showing Moses that the people would even see him as God. So that relationship and how, what that looked like, and what it means to have a wilderness experience. That is a spiritual thing and not it is a state of being rather than being in a physical. We looked at that and talked about spiritually what being in a wilderness place, and then there's a place that of growth or contemplation and so forth, that sort of thing. So I'm sure I'm probably leaving something out, but if someone sees something more significant, please bring it up at this time, or if you even have any questions and or comments on any of those scriptures, please let's discuss it at this time.
Ron, just to add to what you said, Pastor also talked about the Shekinah, and that it shows us our priestly nature and the journey that we are to take. Spiritual baptism shows us what we are, and that we are already accepted, rather than the symbol of what physical baptism shows us, which is got to be baptized to be accepted.
But spiritual baptism says that we are already accepted, that we've got to purge ourselves of these religious rituals and antics that we do. And sometimes we revert back to them in certain situations, to religiousness. And we talked about a little bit about, several people asked questions about, well, can you revert back? And I think the comment was made where if you go back, you you hadn't really cut the cords in the first place. If you find that there's something that you can go back to, you really didn't leave it entirely in the first place. That we must not allow the golden calves of our religious rituals overshadow the authentic us, who we are. We shouldn't allow those golden calves to take authority over us, because we are created to have authority over it. So those are other things I remembered.
Thank you very much. Wow, I left out a lot. I'm not good at that at the recap, but that just points out though that it takes all.
I
of
just
us
take notes,
and,
Ron. Sometimes. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Yeah, it takes all of us though. I love that. I love that. Thank you very much. So, Barbara added a whole new layer of it. Any questions or comments? Because if we need to go back to that, we certainly will do so. Are there any questions or comments on what she just said?
No, I said lots of, meaning I didn't get
If they're not, we'll go ahead and look. I want to remind you, though, it's a good time to remind everybody.
What did you not get in, Leroy?
Make sure you mute your phones. Mute your phones, please.
I think I have one more question, Ron, about
yes, ma'am.
Exodus 3. When Moses was afraid to look at God or to, God, I forgot what that says, how he hid his face when he heard God speak. How does that relate to us today?
Pastor? Pastor, are you on mute?
No, I'm not. I thought you were going to respond. When it talks about hiding your face, it talks about hiding your countenance. When God spoke to Moses, Moses realized his shortcomings, and he realized the errors of his ways in relationship to who Elohim is. This speaks to all of us and our journey. How unsettling was it when we truly accepted the reality that we are Elohim, that we are the Word that was in the beginning, that we have the capacity, not just the potential, we have the capacity to deliver humanity from the chains of inferiority, from the chains of religion, from the chains of depression. We have the capacity to do that type of deliverance. And when it says that Moses hid his face from God, it is us hiding our face from who we really are, or being unsettling to us, our not being comfortable with it at that moment. It's the comfort that you have to some people, rather, I should say, not everyone, have to grow into. And Moses was one of those people. And his father seen even more so when he, during the period when he was vacillating about going back to Egypt, when he was actually making the excuses for not returning to Egypt. He did not want to go back to those religious settings in our today's vernacular. He didn't want to go back to those religious settings to speak the truth to them because he knew how discomforting and how controversial it would be. And that's why he said, they won't believe me. And who shall I say sent me? Those kinds of things. Does that help you, Evan?
Yes, sir. Thank you. For now,
You're
it
welcome.
does. Yes.
Okay, I hope it holds over to next week.
Okay.
Anyone else? Any other questions, comments? We're in no hurry. I mean, if someone wants, we need to go back, we will. Okay. Okay. If there is, and we'll revisit anything whenever we need to, guys. You know that. Let's look at Luke 17 for a minute. I think I see something here that kind of helps us based on what passage is saying, the recognition of being Elohim. All of that is tied into this. And we're going to start on verse 11. Okay? Is everybody there? Luke 17 and 11 through 19. And we're going to talk about the 10 lepers who come to Jesus. If you're just getting on, we're looking at Luke 7, starting at verse 11, Okay. I'm going to read these verses, at least a few of them, and we'll start our discussion. It says, and it came about while he was on his way to Jerusalem that he was passing between Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered a certain village, 10 leper men who stood at a distance met him. And they raised their voices, saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said to them, go and show yourself to the priest. And it came about as they were going, they were cleansed. Now one of them, when he saw that he had been healed, turned back, glorifying God with a loud voice. And he fell on his face at his feet, giving thanks to him. And he was a Samaritan. Okay, let's stop right there for just a minute and look at this. This again got me to looking at it when Pastor said something about being made whole. I didn't read all the way to 19, but that verse in 19, it said, when Jesus says, rise and go your way, your faith has made you well, as it the word in the New American Standard should have been translated to whole, W-H-O-L-E, your faith has made you whole. So that would have been a more accurate saying of, understanding of what was being said here. So we'll get to that part in a minute. But let's back up to verse 11. Verse 11 talks about something here that is very, very matter of fact and pretty much where we are today. And you see if you see yourself in this. And we talked about part of this on yesterday. But I want to show you in these verses how often I use the word whole and complete. And we'll get to the end when we get to 19 to kind of unravel that to see exactly what that means. But we have been taught to believe or to see that Jerusalem means the city of peace. And that comes from the root of the word. Jerusalem is made up of two words. the Jeru, and that should be, if you're looking at in the Hebrew pronunciation, it's a Y, in Yaru. So it's Yeru, and it means to flow. FLOW, something that's flowing. Example of you talking and you're flowing, or you're pointing something out, you're showing somebody something. So that's the first part of. The second part of the word is shalema. And what that word means, the root of it is the same word that shalom comes from, the word peace. But the word means to be whole or to be complete. To be whole or complete. So it's talking about wholeness. And you look at, other words there with the same root. The word Solomon came from that root. So when you look at this, we get the translation that all of it means complete. All of it means peace, but it's a lot more to it than that. You're at peace when you have wholeness. You're at peace when you have completeness. And when we get to 19 again, we'll get into that. So what Jerusalem means, it's pointing the way to. It is showing you of your life flowing to that point of completeness. You're flowing. You're moving in the direction of wholeness. That's what the word actually means. So in that definition, in that understanding, is the peace that you have in the recognition of who you are. So Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem. He's on his way to wholeness. He's on his way to completeness, and he's caught in between, or he finds himself passing in between Samaria and Galilee. And we talked about Samaria a little bit yesterday. When you stop and look at these words, just the definition of them don't really give you a whole lot as far as the lesson goes. Galilee means a circle. It means to roll. It means a district or a cylinder or a circuit. Samaria talks about a watchtower, a watch mountain. And as I mentioned yesterday, looking at it a little deeper, what you see here is Samaria is the old northern kingdom of Israel, and Samaria was the capital city of Israel, was the northern kingdom. You had the northern and the southern kingdom. So in this, after King Solomon died, is when the nation of Israel, the 12 tribes, split up, and they had a northern and a southern kingdom. So they end up just changing the name from Israel to just naming the whole whole region Samaria. So what happened, what takes place here is the Assyrians end up battling and conquering Samaria. And in doing so, they divided the people. They took the people in captivity and they divided them up. And when they divided them up, they intentionally sent them to different regions, and they end up bringing some of them back. And the reason they brought some of them back, they brought them back from different regions of the countryside in which they had taken them, and they brought them back to this northern area where the tribe of Samaria was, the tribes were rather, and they brought them back to make the people assimilate to what they had already done to them. So in taking the majority of them and scattering them, they wanted them to get away from being the Africans that they were. So I'm going to take this from you. I'm going to make you into something else. I'm going to give you a different lifestyle. I'm going to destroy your culture. I'm going to take away the food you eat and the clothes you wear and even the God that you worship. I'm going to make you into something else. So I bring you back to this region because now I want this assimilation to spread throughout this whole area. I want you to forget who you are. I'm going to take away your history. So when you look at this, and I asked, we looked at part of this yesterday. I guess trying to go into more detail on it today. We are no different today. The assimilation today. You ask half the people, half the Africans in this country, and they will begin their history at slavery. So that points to the same thing that is happening with this. And I'll see if anybody has any comments or questions in a minute. The other one, I talk about Galilee being a circuit. Galilee is where Jesus was from. Galilee was the place of where he grew up in Nazareth. Nazareth was in Galilee. This is the place of religion. This is the place where the priests had their reigns. So this is the place where I said it's a circle because there's no life here. There's nothing being refreshed. There's nothing going on here to bring you to any type of completeness, any type of understanding of who you are. So he finds himself in this place. He finds himself rolling in between looking at religion and in a place where you are being forced to simulate. But here's the catch to this thing. Here's the catch to this thing. Just like the people were fighting here, they wanted to be accepted. The African is still trying to be accepted. Although he said, I will assimilate, I will be whatever you are, that is still not good enough. And even in this time, these people wanted to be accepted, but the Jews at that time did not accept them. And that's why I was saying to you yesterday, doesn't this look familiar to you? Doesn't this look familiar? So we when we look at scriptures and we see these things and we say, well, these may point out to us something that have happened in times past. It is not. It is something that is here, that is home, that is in your part of your soul, and just talking about it and uncovering truth is what brings it back. And this is all part of going back to the beginning. Beginning is being becoming more evident to me, being clearer to me. As we understand who we are, it is opportunity to see beginning. And as we get into completeness, you will see what I'm talking about. Because completeness talks about moving into that place that you're in rhythm with the universe. And moving you in rhythm with the universe, you're in that place of beginning. You have it takes you to an opportunity for rebirthing. Okay? Any questions or comments on this verse so far? And as always, we are trying to look at this conceptually, but that one kind of stops me in my tracks to stop and look at this and go over it for just a bit. Okay? Questions or comments on what we've talked about so far?
Ron, this is Audrey. Good morning.
Good morning, Audrey.
Yeah, it makes sense. I don't want to get ahead of you, but I have some comments about lepers in general, because some things I didn't realize until living in Africa and actually saw them and came upon them. So just some background information to share, but I don't want to get ahead of you. If I think I know where you're going with your point. Anyway, but I'll be willing to share later.
Okay, let me read this verse, and let me read verses 12 and 13, and you go right ahead, and you'll lead us right into where we're going. And he entered. Is that all into 11, guys? Do you see where I'm talking about, the assimilation part and the battle that the African is still facing? He no longer knows who he is. He thinks his history belongs in slavery, and he's battling to belong to something that he cannot belong to. So we have to see that our journey is not one of religion. Our journey is not of assimilation. Our journey is one of our own. and their own is recognizing who you are, as we were talking about yesterday, and hopefully we'll see the strength in that. Now, the leprosy. Let's get into this a little bit.
Right.
And as he entered, I'm sorry, go ahead, Pastor.
Before you go to leprosy,
Okay.
when you talk about the northern and southern kingdom, if you look at when you relate it to where we are, we have moved to a place where we understand the division that was intended. What I'm saying is this: if you look at the southern kingdom in regards to us and see it as being Africa itself, the continent, and the people therein, and you look at Samaria as being those of us who live in this country as a result of slavery, then what you see is the southern kingdom did not want to accept Samaria. And Africans on the continent were taught not to accept us as being a part of them because we were so different, in the words of those of the imperialists or the enslavers. So what you're saying is spot on when you talk about the relationship between the two, but it's on a broader scale than just a division within this country. The scale of that division is between the people on the continent of Africa and the African people who are in this country as a result of slavery. That's all. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. That adds a whole different level to it that I did not see it, but that makes sense. That makes sense, and it shows you, it further points to me anyway how spiritual this is, how global this is, and it's discussions like this and like we've been having that lets us know where we are, and I hope to get into that a little bit further too. But I'm going. Anyone else that added value to where we're going. Thank you, Pastor.
Ron,
yes, ma'am.
Ron, this is Barbara. I know you jumping at the bits to get to the 10 lepers.
Yeah. But slow it down. Thank you.
But the other thing I see in what you're saying is, you remember yesterday we were talking about Groundhog Day? How things seem to be,
yes.
We're just replaying and replaying and replaying. Well, if you look at what you just said about Galilee and Samaria, these are things that we need to also be wary of in our lives, because if Galilee means circuit or district or cylinder or whatever, and Samaria is watch mountain or watchtower. Well, what happens to the watch mountain or watchtower? They're there for a reason, correct? In the traditional sense of what watchtower means, it's perched much higher so that they can see, so that the occupant can see from a distance what's coming, how far it is, who it is, when it will get there, that kind of thing. So it gives the occupant, the watchtower gives the occupant a much broader view from up top than they would have if they were on the bottom first floor, whereas they might not even see anything approaching, whether it's danger or whatever. And then you have Galilee, the circuit, where if you're not careful, you could begin to, as we talked about yesterday, continue to get caught in these religious rituals and antics, and like a mouse on a one of these balls, what do they put the mouse inside the ball and he just runs and runs and runs and runs. That's what I thought about when you said Galilean circuit, that we're so busy trying to just run and run and run. We don't even know what we're running to or what we're running from. That's what religion does for us. It keeps us so busy with doing stuff that we don't take the time to introspect, take the time to be one, to be in the watchtower and to see what's coming at us or how fast it's coming at us. It doesn't give us that perspective. It just keeps us down here where our nose is to the grindstone, and we don't look up around us, and we don't look behind us, we don't look above us. We just go, and so that's what this reminds me of. Where on the way to peace and completeness, that the one called Jesus had to go between Samaria and Galilee. And it says on the way to completeness, we have to do the same thing. But we have to be careful, we have to be watchful, and we have to be mindful that we don't get trapped. And that's it.
Well, you God Almighty, you're on track. That's my point. When we get to the place that we see and understand wholeness, we see that we are the ones that's in between Samaria and Galilee. And the thing that we have to recognize, Barbara, just as you said, don't let that be a trap. Don't let it move us to a place where we feel overwhelmed. But the wholeness keeps you from feeling overwhelmed, and that's how you know you're there. That's the measurement for it. You don't feel overwhelmed. Wholeness is the same thing as holiness. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's okay because you open the door for it. And let's talk about it. It's talking about creating space to receive something. So when you look at it from that perspective, and completeness talks about being in rhythm with the universe, being ready for anything, not being overwhelmed, but being ready for whatever you see, whatever you come. So when you look at wholeness, it's talking about the femininity of who you are, creating that space so that you can the creator, the universe can fill you with something that you can give birth to. And then completeness talks about being masculine and feminine. You're giving birth, you're being fruitful because you're in rhythm with the universe. Nothing shakes you. So when we see the verdicts, when we see the killings, when we see the thing, we breathe. And we recognize who we are. And we're human, but the human part of us, you're going to feel something. And I can't wait to tell me what you got to say about the lepers. I want to talk about that a little bit too. You're going to feel something. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm a little excited about this. I love this lesson, but go ahead. I got plenty of time to talk. I'm sorry if you see something more.
No, go ahead. I'm good.
No, I was just when Barbara said that, I was just talking about the completeness, being the right timeness, and being ready, being full, being.
Okay, one of the reasons anyway, that religion and society cannot find balance is because of what you said about being in rhythm with the universe. Being in rhythm with the universe, you recognize that you are both feminine and masculine. And when you become an adversary to people who are born homosexual or lesbian, and you begin to castigate them, reject them, minimize their importance, and you begin to look at them as less than, it is not improbable, it is impossible to ever become one with the universe. You can never get in rhythm with the universe until you come to grips with the truth about how homosexuality enters this earth. The major reason that we cannot find that rhythm is because of our attitude toward those things. Why? Because if that's your attitude, then what you are doing is denying a part of you. We are both masculine and feminine, but in some people, it is more expressed on one end than the other. And simply because they are in a body that does not fit their emotional or their expressions, that doesn't mean we are supposed to reject them. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
yeah.
and I say that because, excuse me one second, I say that because I have a feeling that there are people who are on this line who are not comfortable with the embracing of those who have been treated less than because of how they were born and how they present themselves in an affectionate way. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Questions or comments, anyone?
Ron, before Audrey comes in, I just have one more thing I got to say. I just want to remind you that for me, when you say, let's look at this chapter, this verse, and I'm sure for some others it means the same thing. When that's a code word for us, much like the negative connotations we have about code words. For me, that's a code word that, man, we're going to eat today. And then what I do is I try to begin to search and look for, okay, what do I need to bring to complement the dinner? You know, like somebody invites you to eat.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, I wonder if they need some wine. I wonder if they need some bread. I wonder if they need, you know. So that's when you give that, when you say look at, that means we gonna eat, and what can I bring?
Yeah.
To complement the dinner.
Yeah, that was my expectations for the day as well. Like this is going to be good because everybody has time to look at this. This is going to be good. And like I said, I'm excited about it. What we're uncovering here. Audrey, I'm going to read these. And he entered a certain village. 10 leper men who stood at a distance met him, and they raised their voices, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." Do you want to give us some insight on leprosy?
Okay. Yeah. They raised their voices, but because in that culture at that time, because of that disease, they were not allowed, in the village, for fear that they would infect other people. Well, we know today that leprosy is not that infectious unless you actually live with somebody for a long time. But anyway, so they were not allowed in the village. So, and they were not allowed around. If you were infectious, you were not allowed around people. So they had to stand off at a distance. That's why they were raising their voice for Jesus to hear them, because they were standing like probably at least 100 yards away or 50 yards away or whatever. I'm not exactly sure what the distance was that they had to keep. But I've seen, just living in Africa, I used to see people on the street with leprosy. And it's a very debilitating thing because it really affects your hands and your feet because of the nerve damage that it causes. And when it causes nerve damage, especially to your fingers and your toes, they become really numb. And then over time, because there's no sensation there, you can injure your fingers and your toes very easily and not even realize it. to the point where they either they have to be amputated, or sometimes your body itself can sort of start to reabsorb the fingers. They sort of curl back into the body so that your fingers and your toes look like they're missing, like parts of them are missing. So when he says the leper was made whole, it never occurred to me what that meant until I actually saw a leper. When he says he was made whole, I always thought it just meant he got well. Well, that's a simple thing. But when you actually have seen someone with leprosy, and you see how parts of their fingers and toes and are missing, when it says he made them whole, it meant their fingers and toes regrew. Right? So anyway,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Audrey. This section here to me is the key to the whole thing, understanding this whole thing. Verse 12 says that he entered a certain village, 10 leper men who stood at a distance met him. What is the true disease here? The true disease is not leprosy. The true disease is the 10 men. What that says is, for one thing, the village is talking about they're in a place that's unguarded. They're in a place that has no walls, is open. What is this talking about? This is talking about religion. The 10 men the 10 talks about this should be divine order. It should be a place of right. It should be a place that is complete. But it is not, because it is 10 men. There is nothing feminine there. There is no growth there. So that completeness ends up being a cycle. It ends up being a circle. There's nothing there. The leprosy is talking about the nervous system, as Audrey said, and this is saying that there's no impulses there. There's no life there. There's no newness there. There's no refreshing going on here. So the 10 leper men, and as I looked at that, the part that, because when you look at 10, as I said, it talks about power. It talks about different things, as I mentioned, divine order. It talks about a measurement, a group. It talks about a body of people. Or congregation, but the part of this that I want to talk about for this discussion is the word tithe, T-I-T-H-E, tithe, because one of them of the 10 turned back. Listen, look at what it says. He saw them and he said to them, "Go show yourself to the priest." And it came about that as they were going, they were cleansed. As they were going, they never made it to the priest. As they were going, they were cleansed. Now, one of them, when he saw that he had been healed, turned back. One of them, one of the 10. So a 10th of them turned back. A 10th is talking about a representative of the whole. So if you look at the completeness of this congregation, or this village, or this area, whether it's talking about Jerusalem, Samaria, or Galilee, or all of the above, what it is talking about, the region of us, the makeup of us, the different cultures of us. This group that hears my voice represents the tithe. You represent the people. You are the turning point. You are the ones that have turned back, and that turning back is very special here. It talks about repentance. But it also talks about he who hears. You heard what was said. You heard, and not only did you hear what was said, you heard who said it. It says, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And he says, going to the priest. So he looked at this and says, I don't have to go to the priest. I just heard he who defined the priest. I just heard from him who defined the priesthood. Why do I need to go back to the priest? I'm going back to Jesus. I'm going back to Master. And Master here talks about age. It talks about he who is senior. It talks about teacher of all teachers. It talks about the rabbi. It talks about he who is respected in this area. So we know that Jesus wasn't an older man at this point of his life, or he never been an older man actually. So he sees something here. And what he sees it as a tenth of the people. So when you couple that together with the understanding of wholeness and completeness, you understand what is taking place today and who we are and what we're doing here. This is another layer being opened up to us. Questions or comments?
Ron, this is Barbara.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the things about leprosy also is that the person in that culture, the person was presumed to be defiled and spiritually unclean, presumed to have been to have sinned, and this was a reason for the uncleanness. And so they were, again, because of that, the group, the whole group, stigmatized them because they could see the visible quote unquote results of the sin through the decay of the body, the corruption, as Andrew was talking about. Sometimes the fingers and the toes and even the face and ears of the person were seen as being quote unquote eaten away. But in this culture, the leper, the one with leprosy, was perceived as a symbol for sinfulness. And in order to be considered clean, and I'm not talking about just lepers, but any other persons in the group, if they had some kind of disease, et cetera, they were to go to the priest, and before they could start mingling with the other people, the priest had to claim that they were clean, that they were healed. And so with this one, as you said, he understood that he did not need the priest to proclaim anything because he'd heard it directly from the master, that he knew he was clean, and it was a different kind of knowing than the other 10 that went on their way. This was a different kind of knowing because the other 10 could presumably be still tied to, okay, I have to get all of this done through the priest, even when they walk away from the priest. But this one represented, as you say, the tide, the difference in how I conceive of my wholeness, in a sense.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you that this is truly significant.
And I appreciate you feeling that, because I got, like I said, this one got me a little excited, and I forgot leprosy and that whole lawful thing is explained in Leviticus 13 and 14. It's pretty lengthy to read all of that, and you explained it beautifully. So yeah, and I forgot to mention that, but thank you. Yeah.
So Ron, are you going to leprosy. What is our leprosy now?
What is our leprosy?
Mm-hmm.
I look at it. The key to me was because we look at this as Audra said, we look at it as you first think of it as an outward disease, it's a skin disease, but it is not. It is an attack on the nervous system. So as when I looked at that, my thought was, what does the nervous system do? So when I looked at that briefly, as my understanding, there are two different parts of the nervous system, but it carries impulses. It carries signals to the brain. It carries signals throughout the body. So when I saw that, I think that is the numbness that we see now that is in the church. That is symbolic of the 10 men. There is it is stagnation. There is nothing there that brings forth life. There's nothing there that brings forth healing or impulses that shows that we're alive. But help me with this. Go further than that, because you asked a question. I know you see something, at least partly.
Well,
of what I'm.
Let's keep in mind that all 10 of them were healed, right?
Right.
All 10 were healed, which means that the 9 who did not come back were still healed. So they chose to do what was beneficial to them with the wholeness that they had acquired, meaning that they were not able to progress beyond where they were when they got that piece of enlightenment. So when they got that piece of enlightenment, they began talking about speaking in tongues, and they started talking about welcome Holy Spirit, and it began to catch on because out of that grew a setting called charismatic ministry, and the other religious institutions saw how fast it was growing, so they began to use some of the same verbiage that was being used in charismatic ministry in order to attract and hold on to people. However, the one who returned, the words that they said literally were our Master Jesus. The one who returned and who really believed, really saw what Jesus had to offer. And in returning, that one was able to see beyond the idea of tongues and the idea of praising the Holy Spirit, and began to see what those things meant, as opposed to incorporating them into their lives for the benefit of for their benefit, and trying to say to other people, we know something you don't know. We are the Word Church. The other one, the one who returned, did not even associate himself with that. He wanted to know what the truth is. The secondary part of that is this. He had to return because all he had was masculinity, and he needed the femininity that Jesus was offering in order for him to grow beyond where he was. What I mean by that is this: the masculinity that he was healed by the femininity of Jesus, because it birthed a newness in him, as well as it did the others. But the others were selfishly moving on their own, and they did not even recognize that something had been birthed in them, and that Jesus' whole life is a message, and this message to us, as I see at least part of it now, is that we are to see this leprosy as being anything that impedes our journey towards understanding the wisdom of spirituality. And when we have opportunity to be made whole, we have opportunity to move beyond that impediment. However, we also have opportunity to embrace that impediment without even knowing we did it, because we embrace what we saw at that moment, not caring, not realizing that there was much more to be seen. I'm done.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you.
Ron, this is
And that's
Pramel.
up. Okay.
I have a question. So, Sage, when you were talking just now about the lepers, the 9 who went, they did not recognize the Shekinah within themselves?
They didn't.
Okay.
The 9 didn't.
All right.
And I'm not going to say that the one did. I will say that he knew something was different.
Okay.
And he wanted to know what that difference is. I think about it this way. The one said the tenth, the tithe went back to Jesus, right?
Right.
And the ones who did not go back to Jesus were the 90%, right?
Yeah.
So the 90% became damnation as opposed to deliverance. And you can take that and make application to anything you want when it comes to spirituality. A little leaven leavens the whole loaf.
Right.
It doesn't take much. However, if you choose to keep the greater part are all for yourself, then you begin to deteriorate. Those 9 is speaking to the deterioration of a desire to be spiritual. Why do people go to church? Why do people become religious? Because they are in search of something. What are they searching for? They think that they are searching for God, but they are searching for themselves. And when they find pleasure in the music, in the preaching, in the camaraderie, they stop because they think that they have found God. However, if they continue that journey beyond the distractions of the pleasures of those religious settings, then they will begin to see there is a type of peace beyond understanding. There is a pleasure that was from the beginning, and that pleasure is in knowing who you are. That pleasure is in knowing that the religion, the religious music, the settings, the camaraderie are not the place to stop. They are the place to start. And you start by seeing that those pleasures are just that. They are pleasures, but they don't last long. You can't share those with anyone because they are for you. However, if you gain pleasure, if you see the pleasure in understanding what the scriptures are saying, understanding the message that's being given to us, if you can understand that, you embrace that, you can share it with anyone. especially during their time of need, even if you think you don't understand it, even if you think you cannot repeat it. What happens is when you are sincere about your desires, when you're in the presence of someone who needs what you have received, you are able to give it to them, not necessarily in the words or the manner that you received it, but you give it to them and can receive it. And you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. But the only thing you can give someone from a religious setting is, I'll pray for you. And that does not carry any power at all, because they know that when you say that, you may not, and even if you do, nothing changes. Can you see that?
I can. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of other
Thank you,
things
sir.
that I see. Go ahead, Ron.
No, go ahead.
There are a couple of other things I see when you talk about the 10 and them one came back. The one who came back was referred to as the alien or the stranger, the Samaritan. And the Samaritan and the Jews of the southern kingdom did not like each other. They didn't get along because the Samaritans were, I'm sorry, not Jews, Israelites of the southern kingdom. Samaritans were part of the Israelites of the northern kingdom, and they had intermarried with non-Israeli people, and so they were not liked very much by the Israelites of the southern kingdom. And it doesn't say what the other 9 were, but this one was not familiar in terms of, okay, this is my neighbor next door kind of thing. But this one was thankful enough and grateful enough and knowledgeable enough to acknowledge Jesus. In other words, it sort of had the sense to glorify the master and what he had done or given him, whereas the others had not. And if you think about that, this one became the 10th that edified the whole. And the whole could have been other members of the southern kingdom even. Do you follow what I'm saying? This one
Yes.
who stuck out like the Samaritan woman at the well, in a sense. This one who was defiled, this one who, in addition to the leprosy, was not even part of the body of what the traditional Israelites had seen as part of us, part of our peoples. This one became a light for all of them, and they did not even know it.
That's the point I was trying to make here, and let me make this point. Whoever else wants to. I mentioned seeing ourselves on this. Being human, we've talked about it on several occasions, and I don't think we'll ever get finished with that word, the understanding of it. But it means that you are light. You are the part of the earth that links worlds together. You are the part that has the opportunity to bring the earth in rhythm with the universe. The animal can't do that. Not the bear, not the lion, not the tiger, nor the man who does not walk according to the scriptures, who does not try to seek the Creator. He is no different than any other creature that walks in the earth if he is not trying to seek the Creator, as far as that's concerned anyway. So, being so, here is a group of Africans who represent a small portion of the earth, not to mention the Samaritans, but represents a tenth of what's in the earth. And why do I keep saying a tenth? Because when you see who you are, and when you log into that, when you buy into that, and you feel that rhythm, and you recognize that I am not just becoming, I have become. This thing has captured me, because part of being complete means, and this makes me take another look at Enoch, because I think I misunderstood this. This being in rhythm talks about you walking into this thing to such a degree that you cease to be who you cease to exist. Ron ceased to exist. It's no different than what Pastor talked about, giving up your free will. So maybe that scripture's talking about Enoch walked with God. He ceased to exist. He became rhythm with the universe. He became wholeness. He became the link in the earth for mankind. So as we walk into this and as we become this, that means that all those ancestors that we talk about, you are one with. You become one with. That is the tenth that I'm talking about. That is the fraction that I'm talking about. And when you do that, you are at a place that no one else can see. As Barbara just laid out for, nobody else knows we're doing this. But the turning point, wherever you were that brought you to this place on this phone, every one of us turned from religion. Every one of us. And even though most of us have known each other for years, it has been our own journey. We each had to make that decision to be here, to stay here. So that's what I'm talking about. We've come to a place, and as Pastor said, all of them were healed. But when you're not walking in this direction, when you can't see, the body becomes part of your divinity. It becomes the God that you see. And the other 9 could not see any further than their healing. They didn't know wholeness was even something that was obtainable. Because that's not something you can see. That has to be experienced. And so that's what this lesson says to me, and where we are in this journey. Questions or comments, y'all?
I have a comment. I'm telling you, this is. Thank you, Lord. This is just mind-boggling, because just last night, a couple of nights ago, trying to meditate and think about who I am, and it dawned on me that, because we've been talking about Abraham and Moses and all that, is that they are a part of me. Everything in the universe resides within me. And when I look at that, I said, wow. Then I got a little anxious, nervous, or whatever. And then last night I was talking to my friend, and we were talking about, that we're all part, that we are a part of each other, and we're on this journey. And because I was looking at this movie where the kids were killing each other, and I'm thinking, okay, so what does it take? It takes that 10th run that you're talking about to come together to stay on course, and that we shouldn't be surprised. We were in slavery, and that's where our history for most of us start, as you said, from slavery, which is not true, but that's where we start. And it took all these years to get it in us, to take out who we really were or who we really are, and give us the mindset that we came from slavery and we have no history and all of that, to know that we are God having a human experience. It's coming together now, and I see it coming together. and we have to be mindful not to repeat that cycle. I got a call the other day from this lady wanting me to be on these church committees. And I told her, I'm not a part of that church anymore. And she said, well, come on, just come and be a part. And then that reminded me not to go back to Galilee. Don't get caught in that circle again. I'm on that board. I got to stay on the straight and the narrow and continue to walk in who I am, which is God having a human experience, or God having that's it. So it's just amazing how what you're saying, what we're talking about this morning, lines up with my train of thought, because I was way off. I thought that I was way off base, but I'm thankful that I'm really not. It's just we have different ways of saying the same thing. That's it. Thanks.
No, thank you. That's it exactly. It lines up with everything we're talking about. Thank you. And I guess that's it. We're all off base, I guess. We're all off base a little bit, but that's okay. We've become comfortable with it. Anyone else? So
this is Barbara.
Hey, Barbara.
I just too want to say that I appreciate the awesome lesson, and particularly how you pulled out the 10th from the whole, and because I've never seen that before that way, and it just makes a whole level of difference. So thank you for healing is not necessarily wholeness. So I thank you for knowing that there can be healing as well as wholeness.
As well as wholeness, and it takes all of us to do this, and I that's the thing I love about it. These lessons that we do is everybody's input, as you and Pastor talked about the Samaritan person, because it looks at verse 17 as Jesus answered, said, "Where are the 10? Were there not 10 cleansed, but the 9? Where are they? Was no one found who turned back to give glory to God, except one foreigner?" So he's not just saying that to himself. He's really talking to us. These are words to us, for us to recognize. These are words to his disciples, which is us. Anybody who's following to understand what just took place. So here is a foreigner. Here is the one who should not know these things. And he knows how to give God glory. He knows how to bring enlightenment to what just happened to him. So when we look at this, he says, "Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well. Your faith has made you whole," as we've talked about. And again, this wholeness talks about it talks about being whole and complete, not lacking in anything, and being consumed. Yes, sir.
No, go ahead, Ron. Go ahead. I'll clear my throat.
Okay, I'm sorry. Being consumed by this thing that you're pursuing. So we are seeking to be in rhythm with the universe. We should, I'm going to assume, that be like Enoch, where we cease to exist, where Ron's desires just stop. Ron becomes one with the universe, and while he's still in the human state, Barbara and Ron and everybody else on this phone becomes spiritual more than being the physical being. So healing the physical body is not the all. It should be the beginning of you seeing something. So when you look at that and the wholeness again, the hidden gospel, when it talks about the wholeness and the holiness, use Matthew 7:7. It says, "Ask and it shall be given; seek and you shall find; knock and it shall be open to you." So the creating space, it doesn't say, it says when you ask, it will be given. It says when you seek, you will find. And when you knock, it will be open. So it's not a maybe. It's not a thing that can happen maybe if you do it on a Sunday or that sort of thing. If you are in pursuit of this, if you are seeking wholeness, if you want to be one with the Creator, then this is the opportunity that you have. And that opportunity includes all of mankind. And it goes back to what we were saying yesterday. What is taking place, and we're going to see more of this, y'all, does not separate us from anybody. Does not separate us from anybody. The actions are things that we would not do. But they do what they do out of fear. Out of fear and lack of understanding. And yes, there is hatred. Yes, there is racism. But I like who I am. I like the people who God has surrounded me with and helped me to understand who I am and what's in the book. Pastor, you are ready now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Barbara, when Barbara was talking, something came to mind.
Okay.
The difference between the 9 and the 1 is that the 9 were healed, but the 1 was whole. And that is what makes wholeness so important and differentiates it from just being healed. The process of healing is for the individual, but the wholeness will make you aware that you show the humanity as opposed to just being there for yourself and the people who are in your circle. This again shows us that we are to honor the tithe, the 10th, regardless of what we see it, because this is definitely no different in terms of that 10th than it is with the tithe itself. Both of them are of the same importance. And being in rhythm with the universe means that we honor both of them, regardless of where we are. If we don't honor those, then we are not whole. We are healed, but we are not whole. And because wholeness comes when you embrace the true nature of all of it. I'm done.
Thank you, Pastor. That sums it all up. I got one more thing I want you to speak on, though. One of the things I looked at was if the 1 came back, what does 1 mean? Talk about 1, the unity of the wholeness of oneness, just being one, undivided.
When the 1 came back, the 1 was undivided, but the 1 had the capacity to incorporate the whole, to everyone into itself. Right now, we are scattered in terms of our geographical locations. We are in different places, yet we are one, meaning that we have the capacity to touch the hearts of those who are healed but not whole, and show them the difference between being healed and being whole. And that's what we are talking about, really, when we talk about putting things in the macro. What we are actually doing is making every effort to give humanity a taste of what it feels like, what it is like to be made whole. And when we look at the journey that we are on, the journey for truth is about bringing wholeness to everyone, so that these animalistic attitudes can be transformed into the attitudes of humanness. Right now, there's one is it seems to be hard for us to grasp, yet I believe that we have grasped it and not really realized it because of the change that I see in our midst, because of the journey that we are, that is becoming more and more clearer to us. So when oneness does not mean that you are an individual. Oneness is another way of saying wholeness, and because wholeness is inclusive of everything and everyone. So,
and what you guys have just
many.
talked about, was why that individual had to be a Samaritan, had to be not one of the group, had to represent all the rest out there that were not part of the initial group of Israelites. So it was a foreshadowing of the ability of everyone, regardless of race, culture, religion, gender, whatever, to become that one and to be in rhythm with the universe. So, irrespective of ethnicity, et cetera, oneness is there for everyone to apprehend.
Barbara, we are the Samaritan. We are the Samaritan. We are the Samaritan. Listen to the Samaritan woman who talks about not being able to go to the southern kingdom to worship. Or they say that their worship in Samaria is illegitimate because the only place to worship is in the southern kingdom, in Jerusalem. Look at how we have been deemed to be illegitimate because we have no country. We have no language of our own. We have no cultural barriers of our own. We have no connection to any particular group of people from the continent from which we were stolen. So what we have actually become is not only the Samaritan, we also have become Melchizedek. We have no beginning. Our beginning in terms of cultural has been cut off from us. Our beginning in terms of language has been cut off from us. Even our historical beginnings has been cut off from us. Our beginnings is spiritual. And the beginnings of spiritual are not the type of beginnings that you can easily articulate, that you can easily verbalize. They are more expressive through your actions than they are through your words. The words causes us to search for some type of description that will tell others who we are, even though we don't know. Our actions tell everyone who we are, even though they can't see us, because we are in a space that is unseen, yet we are having an effect on everything that is seen. So in essence, we are indeed Melchizedek. Thank you.
Wow, I like that. That's a good place to end. That's all I have, actually, and I think that's a good place to end. I hope everybody got a thought from this, and it makes. I'm pretty sure it makes sense. I think it makes sense to everybody. But if not, write your questions down. Of course, we will address them. But any questions or comments on anything that was said? Wow, thank you, everybody. You know, it's funny. It seems like this happens every time I facilitate something. I'll have stuff written down that I forget to say, or I get excited, and somebody else will say it, or can't put it into words, and somebody else will say it. So I like the way we do that, and hopefully the other words that somebody else say would be different from mine and make more sense, because it makes things clearer when more than one person kind of open things up and explains them. So I've enjoyed
Thanks
this,
for the
and
invite.
thank you very much. Yeah.
Thanks for the invite to
If
an
they want
excellent
to-
meal.
It was a great meal.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. But I hope the other thing is, I hope this makes us feel better and know that we're on the right track. Because sometimes life can be a little bit overwhelming. We can see things that beat us up and bring us down. And you know, we just gotta breathe. We gotta exhale. We gotta know that we're moving in the direction of being consumed by the universe. That rhythm that you feel is going to consume you. So as we move forward, I hope we take that with us as other trials are going on and life continues to go on. We are a big part of this. Okay. Thank y'all. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of the Sunday.
Thank you.
It was a great Thanksgiving meal. Thank you.
Thank you.